Okay.
Perfect. Okay, well, I will get going and introduce while we await for guests to arrive. Bonjour et bienvenue à tous et à toutes. Nous sommes heureux de vous accueillir à une présentation spéciale cet après-midi. Une conférencière et invitée d'une chercheuse d'Erasmus dans le département des études classiques et religieuses à l'Université d'Ottawa. Je suis Jada Watson, coordinatrice des sciences humaines numériques à l'Université d'Ottawa. Good afternoon and welcome to this very special presentation. I'm Jada Watson, Coordinator of Digital Humanities at the University of Ottawa, and I'm very excited to bring to you a presentation by an Erasmus researcher who's visiting the Department of Classics and Religious Studies here at the University of Ottawa. Before we begin today, I just want to start our session with an Indigenous land affirmation. Nous rendons hommage au peuple algonquin, gardien traditionnel de cette terre. Nous reconnaissons le lien sacré de longue date, l'unissant à ce territoire qui demeure non cédé. Nous rendons également hommage à tous les peuples autochtones qui habitent Ottawa, qu'ils soient de la région ou d'ailleurs au Canada. Nous reconnaissons les gardiens des savoirs traditionnels, jeunes et âgés. Nous honorons aussi le courageux dirigeant d'hier, d'aujourd'hui et de demain. We pay respect to the Algonquin people who are the traditional guardians of this land. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home. We acknowledge the traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and we pay respect and we honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future. It is with great pleasure that I present to you Dr. Stefania De Vido, an Erasmus scholar here at the University of Ottawa. Dr. De Vido studied at the Scuola Normale Superiore de Pisa and at the Scuola Superiore di Studi Storici di San Marino. She's an associate professor in Greek history at the Ca Foscari University of Venice and the deputy director of the Department of Humanities and vice coordinator of the doctoral program in antiquity and the universities of Venice, Ca Foscari, Udine, and Trieste. Her research focuses on the history of Sicily from the Archaic to the Roman period, with particular interest in the inter-ethnic dynamics and the figures and forms of political power. She seeks to examine the political and social history of the Archaic and Classical Greek world, Greek history, and Greek epigraphy. We are delighted to be able to host her today in a presentation entitled VenicEpigraphy, Digital Projects in Greek History and Epigraphy. Just one note on format. We're going to take all of the questions at the very end of the presentation, but please do use the Q&A to ask your questions or share comments. And like I said, I will be taking them up at the very end of this presentation. And so without further ado, I will pass the screen over to my colleague, Dr. De Vido. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, je suis vraiment étonnée de votre mot initial sur les autochtones. Donc, merci beaucoup de ça. Je suis vraiment étonnée. Donc, c'est l'histoire du Canada, de ce fantastique et merveilleux pays que je visite pour la première fois. Alors, dear colleagues, it's a pleasure for me to present to you today our digital projects in Greek history and epigraphy within the Department of Humanities at the University of Venice, Ca Foscari. Our activities are developed within a center of excellence funded by the Ministry of Research, which was created to implement connections between humanistic research and digital applications. The Venice Center for Digital and Public Humanities, I had always the link in the slides. Well, the Venice Center for Digital and Public Humanities is part of the Department of Humanities. It supports the development, accessibility, and dissemination of research and teaching in the digital and public humanities by facilitating the exchange and coordination between existing experiences and by inspiring new projects. The center collaborates in various research projects with local, national, and international partner institutions, coordinates the master in the engage and organize summer school as you and the new degree has set up a series of events interesting for researchers, students, and people. This center covers different research areas as digital textual scholarship, digital and public history, digital and public art history, digital cultural heritage, and digital and public archaeology. Digital textual scholarship is focused on the study of creation of multilingual resources for digital humanities and development of applications for linguistic, stylistic, philological, and semantic annotation of historical and literary documents. Researchers in this area aim to create, promote, and integrate tools and resources for these purposes through the use of open standards and technologies. The area includes the following sectors: digital tools, methods, and resources for textual scholarship, digital scholarly editing, digital text analysis, and finally, digital epigraphy and typology. In our department, we also have a laboratory of epigraphy, which comprises 4 areas: epigraphy of the ancient Near East, Greek epigraphy, epigraphy of ancient Italy, Roman epigraphy. The Greek epigraphy section of the laboratory, established in 1999, has a twofold aim of developing research activities at an international level and fostering the specialized training of students, offering them practical experience in the work of the epigraphist, enabling them to work in museums and cultural institutions and in the field of digital epigraphy. The didactic offer has therefore been conceived in an articulated way. The students have the possibility to carry out internship activities which introduce them to the methodological problems of the epigraphic discipline, with exercise both on the rich archive of casts kept on the laboratory and directly in the field, with experiences of a more marked technical practical character in the museum in the region of Venice. They can also attend conferences and seminars held by specialists in the field and participate in study trips in Greece, Sicily, Campania, and so on. The main area of interest of the team working in this Greek epigraphy section of the laboratory is the epigraphic material from the region of Western Greece, which has long been the object of census and study by my colleague, Claudia Antonetti. This area is the most important national and international research projects in which the group is involved. And another important field of investigation is represented by the epigraphic documentation in Greek language from Venezia. Venezia, that's the city of Venice and the region of Venice, which includes both the one produced locally, Adria, Altino, Concordia, Verona, Vicenza, and the one collected in modern age in the main epigraphic collections of Veneto, in the National Archaeological Museum of Venice, and in Museo Lapidario Maffeiano of Verona. To this end, the laboratory team collaborated in the EDR, Epigraphic Database Rome, epigraphic computerization. The last area of study is the Greek epigraphy of Selinus and Western Sicily. In addition to the critical and bibliographical updating of the published material, we also produced a volume where we can see the cover on the slide. Venice epigraphy is therefore part of the activities of our laboratory and of the wider project of the Venetian Center. Today, it comprises 3 active digital projects and includes one last project on which I myself am currently working. The projects are CREAM, Venice Quiz Project, Axon, and MAS. I will say a few words about the 2 projects that I am not coordinating, but which represent an important acquisition. It's my pleasure to make them known here in Canada. The first one is CREAM, that Cretan Institutional Inscriptions. CRIN is an open access collection of Greek inscriptions pertaining to the Cretan institution of the period between the rise of the polis and the Roman conquest of the island. It has been created as part of the PhD research project in classical studies carried out at the University of Venice by Irene Vagianakis under the supervision of my colleague Claudia Antonetti and Gabriel Baudard. It has been published by the Venice Center for Digital and Public Humanities and is hosted as the Institute for Computational Linguistics of the National Research Council, CNR. The archive classical and Hellenistic history of Crete is a history marked by a very high level of fragmentation. The frequent silences of the literary sources and the gaps in the epigraphic records have resulted in wide sectors of the island history still being overshadowed and a similar fate befalling many of its political entities. The institutional history of Crete, in particular, was greatly affected by such fragmentation and also by the presence of the scarce literary sources. The research project has set itself the goal of collecting systematically the sources related to the institutional elements of the numerous political entities of the island, aiming at highlighting the specificity of each context. The main component of the database consists of the epigraphic collection of the 600 inscriptions, constituting the core of the documentary base of the study, for each of which an XML edition compliant with the TAA PDoc international standard was created. Each PDoc edition includes a descriptive and bibliographical lemma, the text of the description, a selective apparatus criticus, and a commentary focused on the institutional data offered by the document. In addition to the epigraphic collection, the database includes also a collection of the main related literary sources, a catalog, I don't know, of the attested Cretan institution, and a catalog of the political entities of Crete. It's open access. The second project is the Venice Quiz project, a project beginning in September 2017. This project aims at creating an open access digital library of epigraphic quizzes. The epigraphic papers quiz is the reproduction of a stone inscription on a soft line-free paper, a multidimensional mirror image representation of the original text. The paper, cut of the required size, is drawn through the water and placed on the clean stone. The paper is then pounded all over with a thick brush. Once it has been impressed on the surface, it's left to dry and finally removed with care. This technique, already in use in the 18th century, does not generally damage the surface, even its use on fragile stone is not always recommended. The squeeze, which allows to preserve the text inscribed on the surface of a stone, can be carried around with ease and inspected with different lights from different angles of view. If the stone is damaged, the squeeze is often superior to a photograph for the understanding of the inscribed text. Paper squeezes can be easily compared with one another, and they are useful when working with fragments of inscriptions. If an inscription has been destroyed or has disappeared after a paper squeeze has been made, the squeeze represents the only surviving testimony of the inscribed text. Apart from their effective usefulness as a tool for the study and for scientific edition of text, the epigraphic squeezes have also a value for cultural heritage, being documents on their own that serve to be preserved, archived, and safeguarded. There are many examples of collection of epigraphic squeezes organized as digital libraries. We see the list of the more important collection. We have in Canada also epigraphic squeeze collection at the University of British Columbia. These websites and databases, even if useful, have some weak points. No communication with one another, no use of common standards for the organization of metadata, no 3D images. Finally, the possibility to enlarge the collection has not always been included. The purpose of the digitization of epigraphic quizzes must be considered with due attention in order to establish a common digital library. The first step of the project is the 3D digitization of the paper quizzes of Greek inscription preserved at the Greek Epigraphy Laboratory in Venice. This collection, which includes 600 quizzes, is the most complete and homogeneous collection in Italy. It dates to the end of the last century and has since been increased by Claudio Antonetti through research activities in Greece and Sicily. Each quiz has been catalogued according to international standards for metadata and linked to a picture of the corresponding Greek inscription, as well as to the bibliographical documentation. The collection arrangement follows the place of origin of the actual location of the inscription, museums, or private collection. It reflects a strong regional coherence, mainly northwestern Greece and Venezia at Istria, which is not covered by any other archive. The second step of the project will be to set up an online collection organized into a digital library in partnership with the Estampage project, directed by Madame le Professeur Michel Brunet. Estampage coordinates an international network of a collection of epigraphic quizzes. The digital library will include both 2D and 3D images. 3D images will be created with a digital epigraphy toolbook developed by the members of the Digital Epigraphy and Archaeology project at the University of Florida. The third and last objective of the Venice Quiz project is to contribute to the international recognition and preservation of archives of quizzes. The aim is to reach the acknowledgement of epigraphic quizzes as essential elements of the cultural heritage, and thus to safeguard them just like the rest of the historical, cultural, and archaeological documentation. In order to reach and enhance the third objective, the staff of our laboratory in Venice aim at the establishment of an international network for an open access collection, preservation, and exploitation of quizzes. A survey of all the preserved quizzes in various institutions and libraries in Italy and abroad is essential to enable the constitution of a common digital library. It will also contribute to the knowledge of the history of the epigraphic science in the 19th and 20th centuries. All institutions owning a collection of quizzes are welcome to contact the project coordinator, Claudio Antonetti. You see the email address, and to work in collaboration with the Venice Quiz project. And finally, we come to my project, Axon project. Axon is a database of Greek historical inscription sample. The project Axon has been financed by the University Ca Foscari Venezia and then by the Center. Axon aims to offer a collection of Greek inscriptions selected on the basis of their historical relevance, giving value to the epigraphic document as a source not only in the reconstruction of several aspects of political or institutional history of the Greek world, but also for in-depth investigation of numerous issues of social and cultural history. Today, I would like to present to you the history of the project and the questions from which we started. I will then present the structure of the database with some concrete examples. The first issue concerned the selection criteria of our anthology, and in particular the notion of historical inscription. This is an absolutely central issue. Axon is not a corpus and therefore does not aim to include all descriptions. The problem is that it identifies a well-founded and shared selection criterion. The easiest criterion is perhaps the regional one. The collection of the most important descriptions coming from a certain area, a kind of clipping of the corpora that include everything and give a sample of the most significant text. Alongside these, I would like to mention two other possible selection criteria that we find active in valuable collection. First of all, the linguistic one. which has the merit of recognizing the importance of the inscription for known aspects of language and dialect, especially for the archaic age. I recall, for example, the collection dedicated to dialectal inscription on Magna Grecia and Sicily, which show the richness and variety of the Greek word. Epigraphic texts show us the lightness of language and vocabulary. Epigraphs are often the only evidence available to us to understand some specific phenomena of integration, for example, between different groups in the same city. Another criteria is the thematic one, which covers all aspects of Greek civilization, inscription relating to the law, to the Olympic winners, funeral inscription, dedication, and so on. All this belongs to history, of course, and we asked ourselves how to translate this wealth into a recognizable criterion. The question is again, what is an historical inscription? And how can we understand all the aspects related to ancient Greek history? We can get a look on the most important experiences in the international research. First of all, we can recognize a sort of national schools. The Oxonius approach is the most relevant one. We know the importance of the selection proposed by Todd, by Maxim Lewis, and just in recent period by Rhodes and Robin Osborne. There are excellent anthologies, but they privilege political history, which is a fundamental part of our knowledge of ancient history. But politics and institutions are not everything, and they cannot, I believe, answer broader questions related to the ancient world. From a general point of view, historiographical research is very much in depth with the French scholarship, the scholars of the Annales, thought as a broad notion of history, open to langue durée and to civilization. We can place in this cultural context the proposal of the Jean Pouillou Center in Lyon, which is still very active today, with particular emphasis on certain areas of the Greek world. So we try to include both these perspectives, that is, to include inscription as expression of two different aspects. Inscription as expression of the political life of the ancient Greeks, including all actors of political power, the police, the autocratic powers, but also the symmachia, the alliances, and koinou, federal states. We know the importance of federal political experience, especially at certain times and in certain regions of the ancient world. Assuming this criterion, we can select inscription as expression of police, public police, individual power of tyrants, basileis, kings, dynasts, symmachia, federal states, and so on. But we have inscription as expression of civilization as well. Assuming this criterion, we can isolate some general thematic areas: literary and historiographical inscriptions, the votive and the funerary area, private law, sacred context, inscription of ephebia, erotic and homoerotic inscription, and so on. So we have two different types of inscriptions. A, inscription as typical expression of the institutional forms of the Greek world. B, inscriptions as expressions of Greek civilization. That's mean integrating two different propositions, individual and unique documents. They are all the documents that concern political life and that we can refer to a precise event, clearly identifiable in space and time. And B, serial documents, documents concerning social, economic, cultural, religious experiences. We can only publish a document as an example, as a single manifestation referring to a seriality of experiences. This is a very large pool, I know. So we have added three more criteria. They are concrete tools, but they are defined the goals of the project. Age, language, a state of preservation. At the present, we begin with the Nestus Cap, and we stop at the end of the last Hellenistic reign. This period, very large, corresponds to our skill, but obviously we can broaden our field of interest to the imperial period as well. As far as the language, we exclude all bilingual inscription. They require experts and competencies other than those of our staff or our team. Finally, the state of reservation. Even if the integration exercise is difficult and necessary, we have to be honest. We cannot use very damaging text to serious historical discussion. Today, you have tools such as Ithaca, devised by Thea Sommerschild, a Marie Curie fellow at our department, but the road is long, and we are at the beginning of a new research season to restoring and attributing ancient texts using deep neural networks. In our research and teaching experience, we have to take note of another problem of growing importance. In most countries of the world, students do not learn Greek in secondary school. This means that they learn Greek language at university, but within the framework of literary and philological studies. It's very common that students of history do not know ancient Greek language, and this is an experience that I also have in my basic classes in Italy. So we are in a paradoxical situation. Students who know Greek do not read inscriptions because they are seen as less interesting than literary and poetic text. No one can compete with Homer. As students of history, we could briefly benefit from the inscription, know them little, badly, and often only in translation. All in all, we risk forgetting about epigraphy. This explains the efforts to bring even epigraphic tests closer to students and scholars. The most recent edition of the Smithsonian collection have translations, and the collection text of texts in translation are also available in German or modern Greek. To summarize, Axon wants to respond to a broad notion of historical inscription, to focus on the importance of inscription for research into the ancient world, to shorten the distance between Greek epigraphy and the widespread knowledge of the ancient world. And how could we do it? I will show you the Axon record and hope this will provide some answers to this very general question. So I open the page site of just a moment here. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, thank you. I chat here, no? So I have a record for you, example, this one. So each inscription has a specific record with its own number, in this case 455. And the record of each text, it could define and describe all the useful elements. The digital record must respond to national and international standards with the aim to build an instrument useful to the historical research. It is homogeneous with the most important epigraphic databases, but it allows a simple use of the individual documents. Our approach is holistic. We consider the epigraph as text, as material object, as historical document. This means adopting a methodological correct approach from a philological, archaeological, historical point of view. The text, accompanied by lemma and critical apparatus, must be printed in accordance with the principle of philology, epigraphic philology. We could add all the paleographical and linguistic information as well, and the description of the support and reference context. divided into the appropriate fields and reported in an uniform and shared vocabulary that allows the construction of indexes. All this information will be then taken up and exposed in the commentary together with a basic bibliography. Now we can get a look at a database record starting from the beginning, looking at what an author sees. We can then understand what questions each author should try to answer. We see the tools, the vocabulary, and the possible concrete solutions. I have chosen for you the card of a very simple but very famous document, which has been our pilot document since the beginning of our experience, the Master's Cup. We begin with the object type. Well, you have a title, always in Italian or in other language, French, German, and so on, always a title in English. And then you have the object type. We begin with the object description. You can see the object categorization, object type, material, dimension, description, find spot, and circumstances of the find, preservation, place. The great majority of these categories can be selected from a given number of options from a pull-down menu. It's a cup of necessary is pottery, but you can choose. If it were metal or marble, it's not metal, no marble, you can choose the correct word, but the correct word is pottery. So some categories such as object time, material, and state of preservation are directly linked with the corresponding section in the Eagle vocabularies. We will see it later. Then go to the most important record, part of the record. Well, you can choose the country, replace France, Germany, Greece, region. You can choose, and then you have the modern city, and you have the preservation place, country, city, institution, and inventory number. It's really, really useful if you need the images and picture of the object of the text. But we go to the most important part, is the text. We see each entry provides all the necessary information on the chronology, the alphabet, and the language. First, you have general information. Chronology, you can choose a precise chronology, or you can indicate a sort of the possibility, terminus antequem and terminus postquem. You can choose the description, the type of the objects, not of the description, but the objects, and the text structure. The cup of necessary is metric, but you have prose, you have rhythmical prose, and so on. And you have always the possibility to add personal notes in the free field. So after general information, you have the script, description and layout of the text field, execution, graffiti, painting, engraving, mosaic, other. And you can always add some notes on that. Alphabet color. So according to Kirchhoff's color-coded map, and you have the doubt, you can pick this one. Local alphabet, according to classification of Lillian Jeffrey, and paleographic features and letters form. So it's really nice. If you if you want underline a special form of a letter, you can choose the letter in the normal epigraphic series, B, beta, and you have all the form testimonial form of the letter beta in the epigraphic text. You can choose your one, this one. If you have a sigma S, you can choose. You have the can indicate, you have to indicate letter size, line spacing, paleographic notes, and arrangement of the text. After the script, you have the language with an option of any dialect's peculiarities. You can choose of the possibilities. We offer these possibilities on the basis of the more important book on the dialect and the ancient language, ancient form of the Greek, ancient Greek. And you can offer specific examples of linguistic phenomena here in the open field. And finally, you arrive to the text with the Italian, while you can write the text directly, or we pick the text on the back from the PHP, this one. I show it. Oh, I have it. This database is the most important database, digital database of searchable correct inscriptions. Is completely free. You are agree? Yes, we are agree to this license, and we can find your text. We go to Sicily or Italy, and you have the text. Yes. So you can copy that in Accent. It's really easy. You have to control with spirits and accent, but with long text is an important help. So you have the text and the translation. The translation is a sort of interpretation of the text. And the translation depends on the language chosen by the author. So we have text translated in English, Italian, and French. This brings us to the philological text. I draw your attention to the sequence. You have we have bibliography, lemma, and then apparatus. It's a logic sequence. At the beginning, we have to compile the bibliography. It includes all the studies that we believe are important to frame and understand our document. When compiling the bibliography, we must always ask ourselves the question, is this study important for the constitution of the text? That's for its philological reconstruction. If the answer is yes, I must indicate this. In this way, I will have in the lemma only those editions or papers that are important for the reconstruction of the text. I can add, for example, Buchner. Buchner is a German archaeologist who worked a long time in Ischia, Pitacusa, in Italy. So I can choose that. I add it to my bibliography. And I have to ask myself, is this study important for the lemma? Yes or not? If yes, I have to do that. And the study, the paper, research is signed with this green circle. So we go to the lemma now, and in the lemma we have just the studies we are chosen before. And then I have to answer this question. Which is the editio princeps, the first edition of the text? In this case is Buchner Russo. So I put it in the first position. And then for the other studies, I have to answer this question. It is a dependent or an independent edition. I have to answer this question for each of the titles I have chosen from bibliography. And finally, I indicate the edition I prefer. So Gazzano, the study of Gazzano, is dependent or independent edition. That's Gazzano saw the inscription, gave us she's a woman. She gave us her own edition of this inscription, or her edition depends on other edition. If his edition is independent, I pick independent edition, but if her edition is dependent, I pick dependent edition. And finally, from who depends Cassio? From Gazzano? No, it's possible. From Russo? Yes. So I have to move that. And from Buchner, it depended from Buchner and Russo probably. So I move them here. So you have a genetic lemma according to Louis Robert's definition. The text of each inscription is preceded by a hierarchically arranged lemma, and you can see very quickly the story of the text and the discussion and the number of useful and real edition in the preview. In the preview, you have just in evidence, just the independent editions, Buchner, Russo, Gazzano, Arena, Hansen, and Buchner and Cassio are dependent editions, so they are not so important to reconstruct the story of the interpretation and of the text. That's the construction of this lemma is a really useful exercise for the students to understand the philological aspect of the lemma and the philological story of an inscribed text. The philology is not just the text, this literary text, but the epigraphic text as well. And now we are ready to your apparatus criticus. Apparatus. You can choose the line. One. You can write your variant. You have to add the researcher who proposed this variant. And you can choose between them, Buchner, and then you have your apparatus. You can find just edition you have chosen in the lemma, and the lemma you have just the editors you have inserted in the bibliography. If you forget something, you have to add it in the bibliography and then in the lemma, and then you can find it in the apparatus. The system is closed, but it allows a sort of control on the data you have. And I can assure you that on the teaching point of view, it's a fantastic method to explain to students the link between lemma and apparatus. And we conclude with abstract and commentary. The abstract includes all the keywords. So, for indexing and lemmatization, the keywords are divided into following categories: person, gods, place names, geographical names, ancient sources. You have to, for example, roads. What is roads? Roads is a place. Oh la la. So you have roads in your index, and you can find it when you browse the Axon database to find all description where roads has a role, a significant role. So the commentary will provide all the elements that explain the inclusion of the document in selection. Is exemplarity compared to historical problem. It will therefore help to explain or illustrate aspects already reported in the first part, such as introduction of specific typology, the elements dating, the type of support, paleography and language, onomastic and prosopographic elements, the keywords related to specific indexes. We will add a brief historical context with general reference to any epigraphic documents, and then to literary and numismatic, to finally return to a more precise contextualization, which concludes with the historical value of the documents. Each entry is related to other entries in the Axon database. An upper link connects the entry with other digital edition of the same text if available, or with other useful websites, possibly containing images. Wherever possible, images and or apographs and or squeezes or inscriptions have been included. In order to share a common language and a common set, I would like to point out the material available to those who fill in the form. We go to the home page. They are updated on the basis of the most recent acquisitions. And I give you just two examples. The first one, and we go on the other one here. Yes, material. The first one. Hola. Yes. Concerns shared vocabularies. I have already referred to the eagle vocabularies. That what do you intend when you see silver or ivory or limestone or pottery or marmo cipollino or granite and so on? You have the eagle vocabulary. You have the translation of the term in English, Hungarian, French, Spanish. It's all open to the researcher. You can add your proper translation and the appropriate bibliography. So is a resource open to all epigraphists. That means that we can have a shared vocabulary to indicate the material, the type of the object, what is an altar, what is a base, what is a block. It's not so obvious. It's not so obvious. And the other example is the bibliography, which is not a marginal issue. The community of researchers around the world is really large. We have to share a code and reference set. The Elle, Association Internationale d'Epigraphie Grecque et Latine, has in fact proposed a document that is now freely available on the website, where we can have a common sacred reference on how to cite the most important corpora and collection. Our bibliography is exactly, I assure you, it's exactly the bibliography of the Elle. Actually, we have recently updated it. All these materials are freely for you available on the Action site, and you can control and download them. It's completely free and completely open. So we can see Action from the other side, from the side of the reader and user point of view. We regard, research, is the browser possibility. You have the label search, present different search possibilities. Beyond the full text, you could search on different categories, bibliography, keywords, object description, preservation. You can search on keywords, and these keywords are linked with the abstract. And now it is clear, I think, the importance to write a good and well-marked abstract. Other search possibilities will also be available. Browse all the entries according of description chronology. Type of document and ancient region as well. Attica, Beotia, Salary, Locris, Azolia, Phocis, and so on. And finally, it's I would like to just an invite for you. It's easy, join us. Our aim. Oh, why is it? Yes, this page. Join us. Our aim is to establish a growing community and of experts, students, enthusiasts to increase the number of contributors through lists of inscription which I have yet selected but not yet been signed. You can find the updated list of valuable documents. But at the same time, it will be possible to suggest other texts which are not included in the list. This digital anthology should permit both to improve the archives with the progressive acquisition of single record. The number is not fixed a priori, each of which will be subject of scientific review and to consult in a free manner. It must also ensure the consistency of scientific assessment systems with a stable system of coordination and scientific supervision, and ensure the intellectual property of the individual authors. And my invitation to collaborate in English or French is very warm, because humanistic research only makes sense if it is shared, open, free. This brings me to the last aspect of Action that I would like to present to you. So we can go to the cup of Nestor. Browse, I search with the name of author is more. So you can see the record. The author, the title, the abstract, objective, chronology, all the field. Well, the commentary is is, I lost my, okay. The commentary is original, and the commentary shows the importance of the original part of the author. A very common problem when dealing with digital publication, and especially database, is that of data protection and authorship recognition. In fact, I asked myself, how can we protect the author's search? And how can we recognize the originality of their work at every level? As we have seen, in fact, action is not just a passive description, but includes an active and original view. The commentary, in fact, involves different aspects: the analytical explanation of the choices made in the description. Whenever a choice has been problematic or discussed, the author can have here explain the reason for his choice and also report the terms of the scientific discussion. After the analysis, the author can point out and explain the historical significant elements that emerge from within the description. In other words, the author must try to answer a simple question: in what sense is the description historical? Or what contribution does it make to our knowledge of a theme, a context, a social actor, a ritual, and so on? The response makes it possible to create a coherent and connected wave in action. Each inscription is autonomous as its own personality, but all the entries share both the descriptive scheme and the methodological questions. In order to maintain this coherence, but at the same time to recognize the authorship, we have made an editorial choice. Action is a database, but an academic journal as well. If you click here, you arrive to Action as journal, academic journal. Action is published by Edizioni Ca Foscari, and looking of the page, you have all the useful information about the journal, peer review, system, archive, editorial guidelines. We are indexes in Scopus as well. Is provided with an ESSN and a code for each paper, and each paper is linked to database entry, so you can switch between them. I just show you the covers. I love so much my cover. There they are. We are now in our 6th year of publication. Issue 6.1 will be out in a few days, but through the website, you can see the covers, which I love very much, the index of the volumes and the list of contribution. They are freely downloadable because it has, I said, an open access publication. And I hope it will arouse your interest and curiosity. And if you go to an article, just one, if you go to the PDF, through the PDF, you arrive in the database. To conclude, you see in this, well, you see in the slide, I know I have another slide, but our premises, our goals, I think, are clear. And about the last project, I am really at the beginning, and I offered you the next time a presentation on this. So it is my end, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much for walking us through all of these projects, especially Axon. Such a rich project that you and your collaborators are building. So I'm thrilled that we've had the opportunity to learn more about it today. if anyone who's in attendance has questions, please feel free to add questions to the Q&A. Because I'm sort of always thinking about teaching, I wonder if you might walk us through how you would integrate some kind of project related to Axon or any of the other projects into a class with students, undergrad or grad, your choice. I'm just sort of curious about how you bring this into the classroom and
Yes.
because it's so important to learn how to do this, but
Yes.
also to really understand the richness of these materials.
Each year I chose a theme, a topic. Last year was relationship between cities and kings in a Hellenistic period. This year it will be the Sicily in the archaic period, and I chose a set of texts, and each students had to complete and they work on the Axon record with all the data. Yes.
Okay.
If the work students is enough good, they can publish it after review, after control in the Axon. If you control the names, you cannot have an idea about that. But if you control the names of the contributor of Axon, they are really young. They are the colleagues, a professor, but they are just a strong group of students, PhD students, and master students, PhD students.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. I bet your students love this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because they love do something with digital humanities and understand the text as object, as text on the philological point of view, on archaeological point of view. They love it. They love it.
Do they ever get the opportunity when working with digital tools or with these materials to create virtual exhibits of their work?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. On the we have. Well, if you check in the site of our center, you can find the students, the PhD students, explaining Axon to the other students.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So
but in Italian.
Right. Well, but that's important.
But in Italian. So so is that the reason I not showed it to you, because it's in Italian, but you have the explanation from the students for the other students.
Yeah, but that's so great. I mean, I think of how helpful it is for students. I think learning how to teach how to use something is the best form of learning.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, to be able to generalize something so that other users, especially other students, can learn. That's great. Oh, I love that. I'm going to think about that as a type of assignment. Thank you.
It's our philosophy, it's our approach to the teaching.
Yeah.
Not a frontliness, not the typical mode to teach for the graduate students.
Right.
In historiography, in history as well.
Yeah.
We call it seminario. Is the German word seminar.
Yeah. Seminar in English.
Seminar, yes.
Yeah.
I explain all, and then they work together and with me and at home.
Yeah, quite often.
It's really interesting for me. It's really interesting.
Yeah, quite often the model in some of the seminars I've done is that they sort of produce the equivalent of like a conference paper, but I also like the idea of producing something that's actually a pedagogical
Yeah,
project,
absolutely,
because
absolutely.
they can use that multiple times. I love that idea. And we
But
have a great question here
okay.
uh, from
But the root of this project is comes from teaching.
right, right.
Comes from teaching because I use the selection of Mix and Lewis. It is in English. I have no translation. I have myself. I prepared myself in translation for the students, and it's impossible. It's not. I said to me, no, I have to do something.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I really like that. I'm going to be thinking about that a lot. We have a question from John, who says, "Thank you, Stefania. Wonderful presentation. Are there plans to expand Axon to other languages, Latin or Phoenician?"
Yes, in English, you have seen that all is translated into English.
Okay.
So it's bilingual now, English and Italian.
Right.
But we have French records as well. So
Okay.
we can have German, Spanish, French, English, and Italian. Modern Greek is difficult for the characters. They are is a bit difficult to print. Modern Greek is difficult,
Right.
but absolutely, we begin with a national and local local environment. Now I love to present Axon abroad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really wonderful. I love the collaboration
Yes.
that's built into it. I love also I shared your join us in the chat because I think that it's really important to cross so many different boundaries to make sure that this gets, wide visibility, but also building a strong and big network.
And another thing, Jada, is that classics are in danger, I think.
Yeah.
The world goes in other direct direction. It's normal, but we have to collaborate.
Yeah.
The world.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah. Across disciplines, across geographic boundaries.
Yeah. Yes.
John follows up here with, what about ancient languages, Latin inscriptions?
Oh, I'm not Latinist. It doesn't exist something like Axon in Latin. Maybe someone could make them, but the Latin epigraphy pose quite different questions.
Okay.
Quite different. So I showed you the project Ithaca.
Right.
And Thea Sommerschild is now in Venice, and she's working about an Latin Ithaca, to restoring Latin inscription. But she said to me that it's quite different. The system, Latin epigraphy has abbreviations, and it's quite different. So
yeah. Well, and once you start thinking about other languages, you have to start really considering, different formats, different structures,
yes,
different usages, and
abbreviations. Different problems.
Yeah, different sort of cultural or historical issues to be considering. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Ancient world is not so Greek and Roman world is connected, is strong connected, but it's not so similar, I think.
Right. Okay. Not my area of research, but I can imagine entirely. I mean, it's the same in many disciplines, that there are these sort of structural or cultural issues that result in differances in how you approach the work, how you speak about the work. So this is really interesting. I jotted in my notes, but I forgot to say I also very much love the cover of your journal.
Yes.
Really striking. It's so beautiful. I tried so hard to integrate it into my
Yeah.
promotional
Oh,
materials.
thank you very much. I love
But
them. I love them.
yeah, I just think it's really beautiful. It's not often you see a journal cover image that's so beautiful. Well, if there are no more questions, I think I might bring this to an end. But I wanted to thank you again so much. I know that, these it's hard to do these things in COVID times. We're still grappling in some ways with surges of COVID. So I'm very grateful that you joined us
Thank
and that
you.
you were
You
happy
can
to do it online.
you can write me. I tip my here.
Perfect.
Yes.
Great. So email addresses in the
Yeah.
chat. We were talking before everyone joined us too about maybe thinking about how our students might benefit from each other's digital
Yes.
humanities summer institutes. So we look forward. This is a hello. This is our first meeting, and looking forward to many future collaborations and
I hope so.
pedagogical opportunities.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it would be really wonderful for our students to have the opportunity to learn more, but by actually doing things in the
Yes.
classroom with
Yes.
you and your colleagues. So thank you so much. This has been
Thank you to
wonderful.
you. Thank you.
And I look forward to, we're going to post this on our YouTube channel, so share it widely. I know that it's sometimes hard for students to come
Yeah.
and join us live, which is why we record everything. So thank you for those who were able to join us. Thank you, Dr. De Vido, for your presentation.
Thank you,
I
Jada.
learned so much. It was so
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
Have a great,
Have a great
very
day.
sunny Wednesday.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.